What says poor, but pretending to be rich? Viewer edition.
Story 1. When I worked at an upscale restaurant, we had a party of over 20 people who, from what I was told, came in every year around the same time of the year for a family get-together. They had a contract with a manager a few managers back that essentially made it so they'd pay around $100 for all alcohol they consume with the promise that they wouldn't drink much. Which the current manager told me that I said, "This is Wisconsin. You need to tell them that since you're not the manager that made that contract, it's void. You're gonna lose a crap ton of money tonight." I was told that I wasn't even old enough to drink, so I didn't know what I was talking about. And anyway, I could only get the beers off tap and certain low-priced wines. I had to clear probably close to 100 beer glasses off the table throughout the night. Not as many wine glasses because they'd fill from the bottle. I ended up having to help the manager and server figure out how much they lost because neither could do the math. I weep for the fact that I worked for someone who couldn't do basic math. I'm not even good at math, but I could do those calculations without a calculator and faster than them. We lost over $250 to $300 in alcohol. On top of that, they made a set menu to keep the costs down, but half the stuff they wanted, we didn't even serve anymore or never served in the first place. The chef had to hand make mango sorbet for them and was told they'd eat a lot more than they did, so the chef gave me a crap ton of sorbet. By the end of the night, that party was struggling to hold each other up and needed help getting up the stairs to leave. When I raised concerns to the manager that we shouldn't be letting them drive and that we could get in trouble for not cutting them off, I was told once again that I didn't know what I was talking about. Then I got yelled at for not having the table fully cleared in 5 minutes and needing the other busser to help as well as a couple servers. The dishwasher was mad because he thought he had an easy night and was surprised to see the dishes the manager wouldn't let us take from the table while they were still there. Manager had that was mango sorbet all over the white tablecloths, and that she'd have to pay all those who stayed to clean up overtime. Half the time she didn't even stick around until closing or sat in the office or at the bar on her phone. Okay, as someone from a northern Midwest state, Minnesota, and who has spent quite a bit of time in Wisconsin, never sign a contract that says that people from that area can drink as much as they want for $100. I don't care if it's 2 people. Don't sign that contract. That's a bad deal. They are going to drink you under the table. Oh, no. And mango sorbet. I mean, delicious, but why? What is this contract? Get out of it. Story 2. I am 100% with you about the cars. I remember when our Accord got stolen. We got it back, but it had gotten the drive and dump treatment and stank, and none of us was comfortable just going back to using it. Fortunately, we'd gotten a good 12 years out of it, so we traded it in on a new Toyota Camry. And man, here I'm thinking I'm pretty privileged. I can afford to trade in a car that now gives me the creeps and might just get stolen again tomorrow, and buy new. So, I roll up to drop my daughter off for a campout, and the Girl Scout troop leader's husband toddles over to make conversation about the new car, but he seems rather at a loss, and after a pause he says, "I heard that a Lexus is really just a Camry underneath with a Lexus shell." Now, I have no idea at the time what he's even talking about. He might as well have said, "All tortoises are turtles, but not all turtles are tortoises." So I just kind of mumble, "Oh, huh?" It's only later that I work out that this clueless Yorba Linda boomer clearly thinks my shiny new car is so embarrassing that not only can he not find a single ordinary sensible human comment to make about the situation, but that in fact he thinks this shame is so obvious that I will appreciate being reassured that it isn't that bad. No. I'm really driving a Lexus. Apparently Lexus is expensive or something. They don't look expensive. They look like grandma cars. Weirdly, there was no sneer in his statement, no patronizing tone. He showed no sign of trying to be deliberately rude, but In his mind, this was such an awkward situation. This poor lady could only afford an economy sedan. Ye gods! But whatever. I got a new car that I drove for 13 years, and that was still running when I decided I needed something with a higher driver's seat. And I could afford to buy a Hyundai base model crossover. And I still feel pretty privileged. I got a blue one and put a star sticker on it. Yeah, I will never understand needing a car as a status symbol. I want a car that is safe, that's efficient, and that will work as much as possible without having problems. The fewer times I need to take it in, the better. Otherwise, no, I don't want a big fancy car, and, I'm fine with the size of my genitals, so,
Story 3. When I was in about 3rd grade or so, there was this girl in my class who brought in a seashell for show and tell and explained about how it was from the restaurant her family ate at because they ate, I think she said snails or something like that, and they came in the shells. We were all focused on the ew, gross factor because, we were at that age. I don't think there was a single person in the room other than the girl telling the story and possibly the teacher who was aware that such things would mainly be served at expensive restaurants. I mean, we were at the age where McDonald's is considered a great restaurant, and if somebody's parents work there, it's glamorous and everyone is envious. A couple of weeks later, the girl broke down in tears and apologized, at which point we all found out she was lying about the restaurant because she wanted us to think her family was wealthy, and apparently she thought the eating snails story would convince us of that? Super weird. The shell was just one that she found at a beach somewhere. She could have told us that too, honestly, and I think most of us would have been more impressed because when you live in Ohio, the beach is at least 2 days' drive away, whereas there are restaurants everywhere. I don't think I would have remembered the eating snails story long term if it hadn't been followed by the teary confession. That stuck with me because it was the first time I ever heard of anyone wanting people to think their family is wealthier than is actually the case. Story 4. My family is middle class. When my brother was 13 to 15, he was obsessed with looking wealthier than he was. We lived in a small town and hardly anybody was wealthy per se. However, some of his friends were slightly better off than our family and a bit spoiled, so he started putting on airs. He would only wear name-brand clothing with the logo prominently displayed and would throw a fit if it wasn't. He would only wear Oakley sunglasses, which had to be mailed back to the manufacturer to be repaired or replaced whenever something happened to them, which happened 4 times a year because he kept sitting on them and dropping them. He refused to invite his friends back to our house because it wasn't nice enough. Made our parents drop him off at the end of the block so people didn't see their cars, and wouldn't let his friends meet the family. He constantly ridiculed my working-class boyfriend who worked full-time and attended college on his own dime. Thankfully, he grew out of it when he got older, but until then, he was completely insufferable.
I've known so many kids in that age range when I've gone to high school, seeing other kids grow up as I've gotten older. They get in that age where they think it's so important that they have all this name brand stuff. And I was never that kid. I never cared. And I mean, obviously.
Story 5. My father was an interior designer for really rich people that enjoyed their anonymity. They tend to have old mansions that aren't very large but well maintained and beautifully decorated, thanks to my dad. They didn't buy designer clothes for every day, but had extensive wardrobes of high couture and not to trash bag kind, but the more vintage couture for events. The wannabe rich tend to dress to the nines every day just to make a statement, and if you ever visit Monaco for an example, you spot almost immediately who is new money, Gucci and Louis Vuitton everything, it's tacky as F, and you probably can't tell between the locals, whom are not well off at all, and the rich. From my experience, the wannabe rich look down on you for not having money while the real ones just mind their own business. Story 6. I live in an area where the median household income is only $31,000. Someone once told me that whenever they see designer purses, they assume it's fake because no one in town can afford the real thing. I laughed and agreed somewhat. But I know there's such a thing as buy now, pay later, so it's possible those items are real, but they're making payments on them. Also, I think people really need to understand the difference between new money and old money. Rich people absolutely do wear loud, flashy clothes and jewelry, flash their money, wear logos on clothes, and ask, "Do you know who I am?" But that's the new money crowd. The first generation, self-made crowd, and especially athletes and entertainers. The quiet luxury crowd is usually old money. They've been rich for generations, and having/spending money doesn't give the adrenaline rush or ego boost that it does for people who used to be poor. Story 7. I grew up very poor, but my narcissistic mom always buys second-hand brand or expensive-looking stuff to hide our financial circumstances. She loved to show off in her church community and would often portray our family as an equal to the Holy Family. She loved to bathe in all the admiration. But nobody knows how toxic she was towards my dad and me, and that she's always looked down on him for not earning enough. A few decades later, they divorced and she got herself a lawyer husband and then started to complain how he's too cheap and doesn't love her because he only books 3-star hotels during all their trips that he's paying completely, and that his house looks too casual. If he'd love her, he shall buy a bigger house in a more central area. Her now husband really just cares about functionality and quality, while she is always just about how it looks to the outside.
See, these are the ones that get me. It's the people that can't afford all of this stuff, but will spend money they don't have or put stuff on credit just to put on airs and to appear more impressive to other people. Like, stop caring about what other people think so much. Like, get the stuff that you need, and, the money that you save by not buying this stupid expensive stuff, you can spend on smaller luxuries that will make you happier in the long run. Trust me, it's great. I've done that most of my life, and yeah, money well spent.
Story 8. I was a service tech who worked a lot in this one particular high-end apartment building with a floor-level cafe and high-end sushi restaurant. Got to know the owner pretty well, as he would check on us while we were working to see how we were doing. If we needed anything, it wasn't really micromanaging, he just likes to shoot the crap. Dude was super chill. He dressed like he was perpetually on vacation. You'd have thought he was the poor person pretending to be rich in the sushi restaurant. Cargo shorts, flip-flops, baseball cap, and either a Hawaiian shirt or funny graphic tee. Well, I can tell you, this dude was loaded because this whole building, which he lived in the penthouse of, was like his management hobby/side project. This wasn't where his income really came from. He actually did some military defense contract work. And you know how much money our government likes to spend on those defense contracts. Story 9. The most accurate thing about this is being rude to servers or waiters. Most of the rich people I know normally will treat them well and just tip them a lot, so they will also get treated well wherever they are. There's not really any point to being rude at someone since you don't gain anything except making everyone's day, including yours, worse. As for the other things like wearing designer stuff or expensive cars, it depends from person to person. I know someone who is very rich who uses almost exclusively very expensive stuff, since normally they will get treated better in hopes for bigger tips, but also have the money to back up his spendings. I think a more accurate description would be spending money irresponsibly just to show it off. Story 10. Two family friends have extreme levels of money, but you'd never know. For example, a person one drive used cars exclusively even when he could and did drop $400,000 on a painting one day. His first new car was a Tesla Model S, and not even a nice one. Number 2, at least the wife, drives a Porsche Macan. The husband daily drives a Porsche Carrera 4S, including in Canadian winters, yet she refuses to shop anywhere other than Walmart and Goodwill. Having money doesn't mean you can't want to bargain, and surely doesn't mean you want to show it publicly. There's a reason rich people are rich. It's because they're smart. Making yourself a target? Yeah, not so much.
I mean, I will argue against the idea that rich people are rich because they are smart. A lot of rich people are rich because they started out with a bunch of money, and if you start with money, you can just turn it into more money, even if you're an idiot. And do I need to bring up all the examples, because there are so many. But yeah, some genuinely rich people do not feel the need to flaunt it and show it off because it only gets them attention they don't want. I'll agree with that.
Story 11. Totally relatable, and as a Filipino and fashion student, the fakes there are poorly made, low-quality fabrics printed with different designer crap that screams I'm an advertisement. Then there's the knockoff that to the untrained eye makes one look stupid. There's also misspelled names just to pretend they are a brand. Most designer logo mania is Gucci, Prada, Chanel, Fendi, Dior, Prada, Louis Vuitton, Versace, to name a few. You can mostly find these fakes in public markets, bazaars, trading ports, example, the biggest one in Manila, Divisoria. Many who buy them are mostly 9 to 50-year-old people. And don't get me started on the fake Jordans. My gosh, teen boys will buy them just to wear once and hide them or flex when the details of that are tacky. One time someone's house was on fire. The thing a couple saved is their fake designer items. The girl got her clothes and the guy his fake Jordans, not caring about the important papers or checking who's still trapped. Story 12. Kind of related to the first one, I see a lot of folks, and even worked with one, they have a lease and a lot of the time BMW 3, walk around with the key fob sticking out of their hand, sit down at table and place the fob where everyone can see it, pick it up and wave it around when talking. Never put it in a pocket or purse to make sure everyone sees it. I have a much more expensive car and always keep the keys in my pocket. It's insanely comfortable. I didn't understand that driving could be comfortable before I got the same model years ago. I have said something, and they get a little crazy when called out.
Look, the only time that it's okay to walk around with the fob of your vehicle hanging out and constantly put it in people's face and show it off just to get them to ask you about it is if you have either the Batmobile, the Mystery Machine, or Inspector Gadget's car. I don't care about any of the others, but if you have one of those, yes, please, get my attention. I want to sit in the driver's seat. I don't even have to drive it, please.
Story 13. I was wearing my Macy's boots out to dinner at a local Chinese food place, and the server complimented me on them. He then proceeded to tell me that his shoes were Balenciaga and cost $800, but you can't tell they cost that much because they're plain black. My husband and I humored him, but laughed about it later in the car. It's been almost 2 years, and we still find it funny. One time, my husband picked up takeout, and the guy was wearing a sweatshirt that had Balenciaga slapped across the front. Perfect. Story 14. Living with your parents into adulthood isn't a sign of struggling financially. It usually just means they have a good home life and are probably racking up more money before getting their own home than other people who would just rent multiple places before getting their own home because they moved out as soon as they graduated university. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.